Welcome to t.trail. I'm your host, t.trail, and on today's episode of t.trail, Nature's TV, we're going to be looking at generations, and kind of how they're the glue that kind of keeps this reality as it has been, and we're going to look at what it is to break those generational chains, and move into the new. So, like, the generation thing for me was sparked last week, I think, and I don't know, I felt intrigued to see when supermarkets were first launched in the UK, and it was back in 1960. So this would have been a new thing, right? Not that many people would have had cars back then, so trade, as it was, would have been very much a local thing, with a huge amount of local produce. Well, pretty much all local produce. So with the lack of cars, it would have been, a chosen few. They put on buses to take people to the supermarket, and they landed in the UK from America, and it was to help the civil servants in their ever increasing busyness of supporting the growing welfare state. So yeah, generation-wise then, it takes approximately 2 generations for something to become the norm as such, something which is just what we do. So that's what sparks my interest in generations. For me, T-Red, I like to think that I was born in the MTV generation. So 76, and I mean the big thing for us was TV, I suppose, and yeah, MTV was huge. It made celebrities commonplace, and just not on my way up, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe celebrities are the movement away from the God in the sky, and we idolise all of these people on TV, and we want to be like them, and we kind of, the whole screaming kind of generation. So yeah, I came into this life in an incredible time of change. Something I became aware of not so long ago was written by Charles Eisenstein, and it's in reference to generations before we found ourselves in the commercialized world, so tribal living, and those original tribes were born in hot climates near the equator, so there was an abundance of food. And in this article, it went on to explain that women or ladies did everything around and about the settlements, including the building of the settlements themselves. They're in warm climates here, so food was massively abundant. So it was a case of going out and picking food. The fellas went out occasionally and did a hunt, and I suppose because of the size of the beasts they brought back, it was something they only had to do kind of twice a week or thereabouts. And for the remainder of the time, they were just there like twiddling their thumbs. What are we gonna do? And the article went on to say that that's where like gambling came round and about. I suppose they sat around the fire and they talked about their successful hunts and their passages from boyhood to manhood, and after they'd done that, there wasn't a great deal else to do. So they started gambling, and that was kind of, so the 7 generations thing is worth pointing on. And whilst we're on like tribal living, generations back then were, well, they were a community generation. There was not hierarchy as we know it. Yeah, there were elders, but they were a family, one big family group, tribe. And so one child could be fathered by half a dozen, maybe 10 men, and again mothered by grandmas and moms, and many of them. And that child would have different traits from different people that it could learn from. So it became a super rounded, well developed being who had a multi-parental upbringing. So yeah, they were well polished individuals, and then there were the rites of passage to adulthood, which we don't really have in our society. So the 7 generation thing, we carry 7 generations worth of learnt traits, supposedly, within us. Our parents, as in our biological parents, they lend us the cells, and by way of the mother, a place in which a body can be grown. And then I buy into, I think it was the Hafiz poem, that we don't come from our parents, we come through them. We are the universe expanding. So at around and about 49 days, I think it is, soul will inhabit that child. I digress a little, back to the 7 generations. So we carry 7 generations worth of learnt traits, and certainly in the old tribal traditions, they used to plan for 7 generations of children that would precede them. So whenever they did anything, they always considered the future generations that would come. So back to like the children, and 7's the magic number, right? So our biological parents give us the vehicle which our souls inhabit, and then by the time we get to the age of 7, our bodies have practically regenerated themselves. So by that point, we are our own being. At the point where our milk teeth are replaced with our adult's teeth. So then, moving from tribal generations to where we are presently, with a little bit of a skip, and those learnt traits get passed down. So, as I said on the video about industry and the build-up of commerce and the slave trade, when people were trafficked and made slaves, the guys who were owners of the slaves, they would do horrific things to a few of the children in front of their mothers, to instill their mothers with a huge sense of fear. They were hung, drawn and quartered and burnt, just horrible, horrible things. So what I would do was make the mothers completely complicit in instilling their child with, maybe custodial's not the right word, but they would make sure that their child went out and did what their keeper would tell them. And I think that's similar kind of in the industrial days. And then in modern day, and this has all been passed down over generation, over generation, over generation, over generation. In modern days, with the kind of debt industry, which is illegal, or certainly unlawful, our parents, we keep on doing that which they did because that's what they did. And so back to that Haviz poem, which is just beautiful. It goes on to say that we could never know what the child is seeing. We only ever see through our eyes and not the child's. So like the age-old, like, oh mum, I don't want to go to school today, and then you get the, well, I had to go to school. Well, mum, I'm just being groomed to fit into an industrial society where I'm being groomed to fit in, and I'm being broken down to feel unworthy. I'm being told some truths which are pretty questionable, or untruths. Yeah, but I did it, so you're gonna have to do it. It's an incredible thing to behold and witness. So I suppose, like, generation-wise, recently, I've had some great conversations in the garden, and it was only 2 generations ago that our grandparents would have grown a lot of their food and supplied the local commerce with those local shops that have given it away to the next door neighbours, and in that respect would have been living in abundance, right? The amount of conversations that went on over people's fences, and our back gardens were like this hive of just incredible passion. And it was almost as if, like, we didn't have to take holidays as such, like we do today, because, well, I mean, it was different, hey, working wise, but you just enjoy your neighbour's company. So the fences got taller and the supermarkets got busier. Another one that really gets me, and from having spent time being a joiner and really enjoying learning a craft and a trade, was the generation before me would have had woodwork and cooking and kind of life skills, more life skills certainly than are taught in today's schools. And although the workforce was massively different, like there would have been the armed forces, draftsmen, tradesmen, and then people like the manufacturing guys, the skills those guys had were just incredible, hey? Like, the craftsmanship from Victorian days onwards is just immense. And even in the generation before, just incredible. And we kind of see that profit has replaced craftsmanship for a culture that doesn't perceive it has time to spend on making what it has. So there's been a decline in truly skilled people, and then there's been a movement away from handcraft to machine craft. Our houses, which have always been, we've been the caretakers of the houses. Like our bodies, we're the caretakers, that they're not ours, they're something which is on loan. And our houses, and I suppose our bodies, have been bonded and used for profit. They're falling into disrepair, but now, thankfully, we're at a place where quite a few of us are waking up to the chains which generational attitudes and beliefs keep us pinned, and we're breaking those chains, which is a beautiful thing. So it comes from a place of control, ultimately, and to be free of that control and to recognise it. I suppose with the parent thing, it stops us believing in ourselves, and when we do, when we're not afraid to speak our truth, when we don't believe in ourselves, when we do find ourselves within their vibrational reach, and you don't even have to be there. You always kind of referring to, what does mom think? What does dad think? They will always remind us of their story. So to be able to go, thank you for your perspective. I appreciate that. And not buy into it and find yourself defending it. But also being able to, it's a pointer, isn't it? It's the finger that points to the moon that says, you are everything you need, you have everything you need. And then the best way is to raise your vibration so high by following your bliss as much as possible and doing what you want to do, stepping outside of societal norms, and then everything changes, because, as you know, our hearts are the most powerful electromagnetic time machines, for want of a better word. So when we're doing what we love, where we love, and with who we love, our hearts have the power to change our whole reality, including those around us. So, generations, hey, it's just, it's an incredible thing, and it's changing. We're moving back to tribal ways, to bigger families, to communities. So, it's a super exciting time to be around. So, for me, coming from the MTV generation, just, it's been the most incredible journey. I've been T.Rad. This is T.Trail, Nature's TV. If you've got any questions, please feel free to get in touch. And other than that, hope you're all enjoying the snow. If you have it, I hope you're all warm and life is good. And we look forward to seeing you out on the trail sometime soon. Alright, peace.